How is it going? And welcome to episode 62 of the Casual Gamecast, a weekly video game podcast for the everyday gamer, brought to you by the team at Casual Game Content and Friends. I'm Phil Keogh, I am your host, and I do want to make a little announcement this week. We are going to do a very small, but I think very meaningful change to the Casual Gamecast. That's right, folks. You are witnessing history in the making. We are, as you know, a casual take on the gaming week, what we've been doing and what the industry's been doing and so on and so forth. However, we kind of feel like maybe doing news isn't quite the way we should be taking this. We want to try something new, okay? So instead, what we're going to be doing is, as per usual, we're going to check in with each other because I like to talk to Shane every week and see what he has been up to. I like to talk to whomever is around and see what they've been up to before we dive into what they've been playing, maybe what they've been watching, and then find out what has been happening in the week coming, or what has just launched in the video game space. What has come out, what's coming out, what are we interested in, before we take a break and we come back. And here's where the change is, folks. Instead of doing news, what we're going to do is we're going to make this more of a weekly topical conversation podcast. What does that mean? That means we pick a topic every week. The shows are going to be titled that, so you guys actually know what we were talking about every episode when you want to listen back. And it means that we can just kind of talk casually and really get down to brass tacks about how we as individuals feel about things. Because I think if I'm listening to a podcast, one of the 400,000 gaming podcasts that have been made in the last year or two, I think they're the ones that interest me a little bit more. So we're going to give that a try. But if you have any feedback, if you have any feedback on any of this whatsoever, I want to hear from you. And you can obviously get on to us in the comments below, wherever you're finding this, and in the Casual Game community on Facebook and in our Discord. The links are in the description. Now, dear God, how do I talk for so long without breathing? It's amazing sometimes. Here we go. Shane Bowe is, of course, with me as per usual. And I have to go in there and say, Shane, how the hell has your 2 weeks been? Because eagle-eyed viewers and listeners will notice we weren't here last week.
Yes, we went on a little holiday together. Me and Phil got to a hot tub for a week solid and just chilled. You know, we needed to relax. We needed to really, like, you know, it's hard being internet famous. You know what I mean? We gotta take some time away and just chill. Yeah. Let's go with that.
No. What
something else?
What it in fact was the first round of incredible, like, sinus-related sicknesses swept the Cork nation around last week. I got hit super bad. I was out for the count. I've not been so sick in like years, and I had no fever. I had no like whooping cough or anything like that. It was all up here in the back of my sinuses, and I couldn't breathe properly. I was getting tension headaches, and it was just horrible. It was one of those horrible sicknesses where you can't do anything. So I just took time off work. I just stayed in bed, lemsipped all day long, and gave myself the week to recover. And now, as per usual, as per tradition, just as I'm back on form, my girlfriend is downstairs now in the fetal position on the couch with the same illness. So I expect we're going to give it back and forth for the coming month or two. When one of us is well, the other will be sick. But that has been why we weren't here last week. But Shane, because you had 2 weeks to yourself, did you get up to anything interesting, my friend?
Did I get up to anything interesting in 2? If I have to ask that question of myself, it's probably not a good answer.
Hey, that's fine. I mean? That's fine. It's a new, it's a new podcast, baby. You can do whatever you want.
No, it's
a story.
Yeah. Let's go with that. That's what happened. I know. I did nothing. So I painted my mother's kitchen today because my mother needed help painting her kitchen. So that's the only thing outside of like my regular routine that I think I've done in the past 2 weeks. Was paint the kitchen. So there you go. I hate painting. It is it's one of those, you know, things that you have to do. I don't mind cutting hedges, lawns. I don't mind doing other housework stuff like that, or helping fix things. God, I hate painting. It is so tedious.
So let me put it to you. In terms of like house renovation, painting a room, like, you know, out of 10.
Oh God, like a 2. Like
that's a 2.
Yeah,
that's a 2.
I hate it so
a
much.
2.
It's so boring.
Come on.
Maybe
If you have the right tools, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's so enjoyable to be able to like just see the crappy colored wall and just like ever so gradually it's like look, it's you can see the work in front of you, like you can see the change you've made, like it's so satisfying.
No, I get so bored so fast. Like 3 brush strokes and I'm like, I'm out, I'm done. Yeah. And you know what? You know what the killer is as well? I'm actually quite good at it. Like I'm really good at not getting
humble
paint
brag time. Humble brag. Do you know what? I'm actually a savant, but
I'm like room painter extraordinaire. I realized this today. Because the mother, like in her kitchen, has like coven and stuff that she had to get painted. She wanted to paint it white. Okay. And then like you can't. She was painting the walls this kind of green color, and obviously you can't get the green on the white coven, or that's like you're going straight to hell.
Get out of here! Yeah, for sure.
20
I thought you said COVID.
So did I.
She's got COVID.
I thought you said she's COVID in her kitchen, and I painted over it. I was like, what?
No, that fancy white crap that goes around. That thing. Yeah. So that was painted white, of course. So then you can't get any green paint on it, or you're going straight to hell and have to say 20 decades of the rosary or whatever. You know yourself.
Standard, yeah.
And so like I had to be like super careful with the paintbrush, and I realized I'm actually quite good at this. I haven't got any paint anywhere I shouldn't have, but God, that I hate doing every second of it.
Well, since we are talking about house renovations, it is about time that we introduce the third voice on the podcast, and that is our special guest, Petso from the All Cast Irish Gamers. You know him, you love him. Welcome.
Yay. Thanks for having me. It's great to be back, lads. Great to be back on. Yeah. Big fan. I think you're doing really well. Was it episode 62 today?
62.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's massive. Like,
for our sins. We've missed 2 weeks in 64 weeks, so not too bad. I think when we missed that first week a couple of weeks back, Shane, we kind of set ourselves up for a precedent. I was like, crap.
It's hard to keep doing it, like especially when you're getting started and stuff like that, to keep going and get motivated and stuff. So it's great to see 62 next to the title.
Yeah. Up against the soon-to-be revamped title. But Petso, how the hell are you, man? What have you been doing this week? And in particular, what were you doing yesterday?
So yesterday we did the Herds of Nerds podcast. You took over.
Yes, it was a CGC takeover, baby.
Yeah. Did a great job. Shane, you're going to need to come over and argue.
I really do. Every time I get a text off Phil to be like, the Herds and Nerds lads each on, it's like it just doesn't work, like every time.
And you're in the hot tub, you can't get out.
Like why would you? You're sitting there, you have your glass of prosecco, you're in the hot tub. Why would you get out? Like why would you?
But we did the Herds and Nerds is like a debate show, so we pick kind of fun topics and then we debate which is like the best or worst of something. And yesterday we did the best 90s sitcoms. So Shane, what sitcom would you have picked?
So I seen it being shared around on Facebook, and I just because I'm currently rewatching a lot of it because it's been shown on TV again, King of Queens.
Oh, King of Queens is good. Yeah,
was that a 90s show or was that a 2000 show?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's 90s or 2000, but it's
I'd say that was 2000.
It's on Comedy Central a lot at the moment, so I'm watching a lot of it when I'm like having dinner and stuff like that.
That was the only time Kevin James was ever funny to me.
Yeah. And they keep trying to remake that same funniness from that show. Like in one of his new shows, he was married to a different woman, and they brought in the girl from King of Queens as like just his friend. And then people loved having them both on screen again, so they killed the wife off in the next season, and then he started getting with her again. I was just like, "This is ridiculous. You can't." She
like, okay, we're not going to go off on a mad tangent here, but wasn't she like a Scientology survivor or something?
Sorry, King of Queens was 1998.
Just in there. They didn't Paul, like the whole Paul Blart thing really ruined his career, I think. Like that that was so successful, unfortunately, and that just pigeonholed him into like, I'm the big stupid fat doofus, you know?
Yeah, I think Adam Sandler put him into that bracket. And
I don't think he had him handcuffed or anything.
No, like look, no one's going to say no to money.
True. Adam Sandler's whole clique got paid out big time over the last like 20 years or 10 years.
Yeah, and they've not made a decent film in about 15 years.
No.
there's
very true.
That one Adam Sandler film where he was a diamond merchant was pretty good.
Yeah, I think that was him trying to reinvent himself. because in every film he plays Adam Sandler as Adam Sandler. He's always this rich guy with a huge mansion and lots of money, but he's got like relationship issues that he has to solve. It's always the same.
And ever since he signed that deal with Netflix, like he's just been
churning
out like crap after crap. It's like that that episode of Family Guy where like they have a skit where Stephen King goes into the office like, "Oh, what book have you got for me today, Steve?" It's like, "Oh, Scary Can Monster."
Exactly.
Exactly. Damn it, Stephen.
But like that's what happens when you get any creative and you say, "Here's a truckload of money, and we just want 10 things from you." 10 what? Just whatever. 10 things. We think you're great. And like, remember Frank Zappa had that in the music industry back in the day, and he got so sick of the contract that he churned out, what was it, like 7 albums, 9 albums in the course of 3 weeks, and just crap. Like, here, I'm contractually not obligated to you anymore. You know?
Yeah. That same thing happened to Mike Myers. He was contractually, like, he had to do Cat in a Hat. He didn't want to do it, but it was part of his contract, so he did it, and then that was the end of him. Like, I
heard a really interesting fact, and this is the last thing we'll do on the general discussion. Because I'm as bad as anybody. I want to talk about this now, but like I heard a really interesting fact recently. Do you know Shrek?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So Shrek, the multi-billion success that it was. Okay. There was huge speculation internally that film was going to bomb hard, and you know why? Do you know the way that film was like revolutionary for like, oh, we had Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, and Mike Myers, but like they were never met. They were all on different sets, but they made the chemistry was so real that you thought they were together. It turns out that Mike Myers wasn't the original casting for Shrek. He took the role at the last minute. He recorded all the lines, but only after the lines were recorded and only after the CGI for the mouth movements and everything was done, he had an epiphany and he demanded to the director that, I think Shrek should be Scottish. He just like, after everything was done, after all the production, and apparently it cost millions to put the entire film back through the ringer. Had never, like, this isn't Shrek 2, this is Shrek 1, where they hadn't a clue whether this was going to work. And they had to invest another couple of million into it just to make this one thing happen. Wow. And thank God it worked for them, like, you know.
Yeah.
No, it did. It's very good. So bringing it back. So we do debates. We did the 90s one. Go watch it. It's very, very good. It's very interesting. Find out who wins.
Great fun.
But yeah, great fun. It's always good crack every week. And look, it's fun. It's half of it is just getting to meet up with the lads and have a chat once a week because we're so busy in our day-to-day lives. We forget about picking up the phone and stuff. So it's good to have an excuse to talk to everybody.
Man. 100%. Like, me and Shane started this like over a year ago, and I hadn't talked to Shane in like years before we started doing this, and now he's like the person I've talked to the most.
Yeah.
You know,
I like that side of it more so than anything else. I like I look forward to Wednesdays to do something as well. I know Pain Train for years and years. We don't talk that much. We seem to be talking a lot more often now, like a few text messages and calls and stuff through doing the podcasts and stuff with each other, so I like that kind of aspect.
As you get into your 30s, it's harder and harder to keep that circle, you know what I mean? So like having a reason is great, you know what I mean? For sure.
I think we turn into like house hatchers when we get into our 30s, where it's like I want to sit on and watch telly or play computer games. I want to do my own thing. I don't really want to interact with people unless it's Friday.
Yeah. So then having that forced like interaction that you put upon yourself really helps, because like I always find as well that like on a Thursday during the day, I'm just like, sometimes I'm just like, oh God, I have to do that podcast later. I just want to chill out. And then the second I sit into the chair and turn on the PC, I'm like, hey, I'm enjoying it again. You know what I mean? It kind of breathes life into you a little bit too, you know?
100%.
One thing I will say about the Herds of Nerds, I really enjoy it. Before you ever asked us to come on to it, I was watching it and really enjoying it. And I love as well your other podcast with your partner, Geeks for Weeks. I think that's a phenomenal show as well. The one you mentioned on last night's cast, actually, the one about it actually ties very similarly into this, so I encourage anybody that's listening to this to go and find Geeks for Weeks on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts and look up, I believe the episode was around gaming, was it bullying and depression and possibly addiction?
It was gaming and depression, which was but I think when we actually sat down to chat, it did go into addiction a little bit as well. And the whole kind of, now Lydia did a lot more research, and I was chatting to her before this, and she gave me a few pointers. But she got so much information, and it was so interesting, and it was something, I don't know, we'll go into it now in a minute, I'm sure I'll mention stuff, but it was something that I felt, it felt it reminded me of when I was growing up and how I felt, the stuff that she had found out and stuff like that as well.
Yep.
So
it was very relatable.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, guys, I think we have done all the introductions. And once again, that is all cast Irish Gamers. If you are looking for the lads on YouTube, on your podcatchers of choice, on social media, I'm pretty sure they're easy to find if you just Google that, okay? But let's jump right into it. So, Mr. Editor!
Alright, stranger. What are you playing?
Now, it is at this point where we are asking each other what have we been playing, and because of our new format, we're going to try and keep this one tighter, okay? We're going to try and be very choice about what we're going to talk about here, but I do want to dive into a couple of games here. So in order to facilitate a couple of games, let's be conscious, okay? Now, I'm going to start off, and then I'm going to jump around to each of you, okay?
Right.
Now, the first game that I want to talk about today is... Shane, I buckled hard over the course of my sickness. I said on our last podcast I wouldn't be buying this because I have put too much money in Capcom's fat, greasy pockets over this one game already over the past God knows how many years. But I buckled and I bought Resident Evil 4 VR edition on the Oculus Quest 2, and I am here to tell you, it's glorious. It's really, really, really well done.
Those fat cats at Capcom have done it again.
Yeah, it did it again, damn it.
So that means, right, that means I own a physical copy on GameCube, PS2. I own a digital copy on PS2 through like a hack thing I have, which doesn't count, I guess. I own it on Switch, I own it on PC. I now own it on VR, and I'm pretty sure none of those, maybe one of those, were on sale at some point. So like, there's a stupid amount of money gone into that game.
Do you own it more than your copies of Skyrim?
Yes, because I think I only own like 2 copies of Skyrim, and the rest have been like Game Pass or Lens.
I think you should always level it like.
You gotta level them up.
You're like, Skyrim is out on everything. Everything. So you've got to kind of go. Have I got a problem? Is it Skyrim problems?
No, what you gotta do, you see, is you gotta check your levels. It's like, okay, well, I have 7 Resident Evil 4s and I have 2 Skyrims. That means I need to buy another 5 Skyrims to just get things level. And you know, one more. I have to buy one more Resident Evil. You know,
you're like the guy from like those weird maths problems. Like Phil has 5 copies of Skyrim,
and he's on a train to Bermuda, which is traveling at 70 miles per hour.
Yeah. How many shares in Capcom has he got?
And then, of course, 0. You're going to have to own it again when the inevitable like Resident Evil 4 remake for PS5 or whatever comes out, or Xbox X.
And will it be VR as well? Do you think the remake? Because like if this one is so successful, well, like they made like what number 7 was VR.
But they left it out then on 8, which was surprising. So I kind of think, like, are they kind of thinking to themselves, maybe it's easier to make a kind of an arcadey experience when it's not VR driven? Because, like, 7 was built with the idea of VR, which bizarrely is still only on PlayStation. But, like, you know, it did make it a more intense experience. It's very close in, very first person-y, very kind of, like, situational. Whereas, like, 8 is just arcade mode, go nuts, baby, which would be kind of sickening a little bit in VR. But back to the point, keeping it snappy. Yeah, it runs like a dream. The one thing I said on Herds for Nerds when I was talking about it, I think it was Herds for Nerds I was talking about it, could have been in my dreams. But the thing about it I noticed immediately was it doesn't feel like a weird hack job that's been put onto the VR for a cash grab. Yeah. It really feels like they put the effort in, because not only does the controls feel great, because I'm playing it in immersive mode where it's like your gun is actually attached to your hips, you have to grab it, and your grenades are here and your first aid is here on your shoulders, so that's pretty cool. But the actual textures of stuff, like I was thinking, okay, this is going to look like crap. Even if it plays well, it's going to look crappy. It looks exactly like the PC high-res version I'm used to, and like they really put the effort in, and I have to applaud them for it. And I just didn't think that this game would really work all that well in VR. I thought it'd be fun, but Wow, it really works. Like it's like typing out your name on the keyboard when you're saving with your own fingers. It's incredible.
What's the the parts of the game where it's kind of like it's sort of a horde mode where you're going to get attacked by about 40 lads. You have to just survive. What's that like in VR? Because I would have imagined that's a bit sickening because you've got to move quite a lot.
I don't know, and I don't even know if there is a horde mode in this in particular. But what I will
the
say,
sections, like I remember the first section is like the guy with the big axe comes out.
Yes.
There's like about 12 lads with him. So you've got to be running around constantly, like, and then turn and shoot. And
it's not bad, and I'll explain why. Is because, like, when you were playing it with a controller, okay, there's only so much like precise aiming you can do with a controller in third person. You know, like you had to plant yourself down, because you know the way it's Resident Evil, like you press aim and you're planted, and now you're like, bang, you know, and then you run and you go bang and you run. You don't have to do any of that in VR. You can aim and move all the time, and you have your hand out with a laser-sighted gun. Like, I rarely miss a headshot. You know, it's just like boom, 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 and it makes the encounters kind of trivial to a degree, but at the same time, and this is one of the weird things about it, is, you know, Leon Kennedy this is like when he started to transition into weird karate master, and if you like stun an enemy, you can run up to them and press A, and all of a sudden he does this, like, you know, judo kick and clears the room. You can do that if you get in a pinch. So, like, I literally have 12 zombies on top of me, or guys, whatever they're called, and I'll shoot one in the head, and I'll run up and I'll press the button. But it's at that point there were certain things in this game that they just couldn't figure out how to put it in first person VR. So, like, climbing ladders and doing spin kicks, sweet cool ass spin kicks. They go for a second into third person where you see it, and then you're back in his eyes. So, like, it's a really easy way to get out of things because it's so trivial to aim in VR. But at the same time, you get that weird feeling of whoosh, whoosh. It's like leaving your body for a second to watch you do a sweet ass roundhouse and then come back, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just to wrap it up, it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful. But because I've been talking about VR, I think that this is a natural segue into what Petso may have been playing this week. Because Petso, I believe Pain Train, that you just mentioned earlier, that is on Herds for Nerds last night, gave you a lend of this very VR headset. For the video and audio listeners, Petso is holding up what is that, an Oculus?
A Rift, I think he called it.
A Rift.
Oculus Rift, yeah.
Nice. And what have you been playing?
So, I've never played VR, even though we go to events and we have VR on stage, and we get all the kids up to play VR, like Beat Saber and all that, but I actually never got a chance to play it. Now, Mignon has, and then I wanted to get what you have, which you have the Oculus Rift 2, is it?
The Quest 2.
Quest 2.
Yeah.
So I was looking at getting that, and then I was like, I want to have a shot of it first to see, because if they're expensive. You're looking at 400.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And so he said I could have a loan of his one. So we've set it up, and we were playing. God, what's it called? It's like Job Simulator, where you there's little robots around, and they're telling you, like, you can be like a cook, and you can work in the office. And I just found it so. Again, the way it picks up your hands on the buttons and stuff like that, and you can pick up stuff and throw it. Somebody from the other cubicle in the office will turn around and go, "Hey, don't throw that!" Everything is everything's so interactable. And there's like they bring a shredder over to the desk, and they're like, "Oh, you need to shred 5 items from your desk," and all my stuff is gone. I've thrown it all over the place, and I can't reach any of it. I'm like, "Oh God!" Yeah. And then we checked out another game, which was like the Titanic. Didn't play very well. I don't know if that was my computer. It was a little bit like maybe sometimes 10 frames per second, choppy, and then back up to 30. But you got to watch the whole Titanic sink from like one of the lifeboats, and it was quite intense. Once you're in it, you know, you're sitting down and watching it, and I was like, Jesus, this is like, I wonder if they'll ever do movies like this, like actual films where you're sitting watching something unfold, because I actually did feel like, oh shit, that's mad, that's like insane to watch it from this angle.
Completely.
And then there was another one that we like, Beat Saber we played as well, obviously. We had a great crack on Beat Saber. And
possibly the best rhythm game ever made. Once you can actually play it, you're like, wow, yeah, this just makes all kinds of sense.
The music's terrible unless you go and buy.
That's very true.
Like, the music's really, really bad. Like, it's not even like catchy or anything.
It's really weird. Like, my girlfriend is by far, I'd say she'd rank in like top Irish players. Like, she is unbelievably skilled at Beat Saber, and she was woeful when she started. And it's amazing. She's really dedicated herself to it. And like, I know for a fact that like that is the highest selling VR game of all time. Like, that is on every VR headset in the planet.
You have to have it, yeah.
Exactly. And like, there's no way they have not made enough revenue to buy decent tracks. And then when they do put out tracks, it's like Panic at the Disco. And it's like, who the hell asked for Panic at the Disco? Like, do you know? Like, well, Linkin Park was okay, I guess.
I must be doing something wrong, because I only have 3 albums, and they're all like generic DJ dance music, and everything else has a little download symbol, and I have to buy it.
Nope, you're doing it. No, you're doing 100% right. That is exactly what they gave you. Yeah.
That's why they make those extra dineros, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was like,
yeah. And you'd imagine, like, if they put in like a stupid amount of tracks into that, like, it would be so much. Like, I guess it's not a problem for them, because they don't need to sell any more copies, because everybody buys it anyway. So
it's a shame it can't. You know, like, you get the speakers that when you play music, every sort of bass makes the light shine. You know, it reacts to the sound, or you might get these things that, like, the musical levels go up and down. I'm surprised you can't just stick on Spotify now. I know they want to make money, obviously, so they're not ever going to put this in, but I'm surprised it doesn't have something where you can play Spotify and it automatically generates the boxes based off
a visualizer type thing.
Yeah, something like that, and then you could just play, but it wouldn't be as accurate as buying the music and stuff like that.
So we here at CGC obviously do not condone piracy, but I do pirate, and for fun mostly, and it's these reasons here that I do it. So if I don't know how easy it is to do in the Rift, I assume it's probably easier, but on the Quest there is Oculus are very good about open platform stuff. They'll like allow a kind of a backdoor access, and then if you are savvy enough on a computer, or just go to Reddit and look at a guide, you can pretty much backdoor a lot of programs into it. So like, I have a load of like unsanctioned stuff on my Quest as it is, but you can actually hack Beat Saber really easily, and you can download community maps. So like, I got rid of it at one point because you can't update the Beat Saber app, and it's this whole thing. But for the while I was doing it, I downloaded like loads of songs, and like, it's amazing. Some songs are way too hard because the community is making them, so like, you can't be sure they're made well, but like, they're all curated, so you can go in and see what are people playing that they like. But one of the most fun things I ever did was playing Beat Saber with a community map of Aladdin, A Whole New World. It was like, because like, the guys, you know the way you're using your arms, and you're swinging your arms around, you're swinging your body around, and they did it in such a way that they put blocks coming up to kind of force your body into ways. And so it was like, I can show you the world, and you're just like swinging around the room, like, you know. My girlfriend came in and was like, are you dancing? It's like, no, I'm just playing.
Yeah.
But no, it was good
Don't
stuff.
judge me.
Judge me, I'm great.
The other thing I say is the menu. Like, when I first turned it on in the menu system, and you know, it looks like Minority Report. You know, you like, oh, here's my desktop, here's my games, here's this, and it's all around the room, and you can make them smaller or bigger. I was like, this is unbelievably good. I was like, I was on the main menu for half an hour.
This is the game. This is just what I'm doing. I'm just going to stay here.
This is it now. This is my life.
The way it makes you feel, like if you're looking down a cliffside, you feel a little bit of vertigo, even though you know you're in a, like, it's just, it plays tricks with your mind. And I haven't played anything now when you're walking around, so I know
that's the big test.
A bit of motion sickness, I'm sure, when you're not actually walking, but everything feels like you're walking.
Yeah, like, I have like rock solid VR legs. It's nothing has ever made me feel sick, and I'm very blessed in that way, because I can completely understand where the motion sickness comes from, because it's like a mind association thing. I think your mind either works in a sense that you can easily tell this is fake and you're just enjoying it as a game, and then sometimes your mind will just, in the back of it, you have no control over it. Sometimes your mind will just go like, oh, that's fucking weird. Like what? I'm not moving this way. Why am I now moving this way? You know, I've not sent the neurons down to your legs to do this. What's happening? You know. But anyway, no, VR. Run, don't walk, ladies and gentlemen. But
well, be careful about running in VR.
Make sure you don't have the thing on.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Shane, I gotta ask you, you have probably been sinking an awful lot of time in the last 2 weeks, I assume, into the never-ending game that is
FarCry 6.
How are you feeling? Let me take that temperature. How are you feeling?
I'm good, actually. Good. So, some of the gripes I had 2 weeks ago when I was talking about first starting it are still there. I actually have one extra gripe that I'm going to get out here now.
Okay.
When you like are entering a, you know, the usual Far Cry formula. Oh, here's a base. Go kill all the enemies, and you get extra bonuses for not setting off the alarms or anything like that. Yeah. Fine. the problem I have is if an enemy spots you, the meter or whatever, the meter that they're looking at you and it fills up and they spot you. If they spot you and you kill them within a nanosecond of them spotting you, everyone else is alerted. Everybody. Yeah. It's not just that one person. It's the whole base full of people. And I'm like, how? The guy didn't even get to blink when he seen me before there was a bullet between his eyes. How is it possible that everyone is now on a high alert searching for me?
Yeah.
I thought that as well. In Metal Gear Solid, I'm nearly sure when a guy spots you, there's an animation of him getting the radio out before everyone else knows you're there. So you do have an extra 10 seconds to kill him before everyone else knows.
And they don't even know you're there. They know that there's some, they've just radioed in saying, in this room somewhere, there is a guy. And we need to run around until we find him. But it seems to me like FarCry is and I haven't played it, full disclosure, but it seems like, oh, I put a bullet in this guy, and now no matter where I go in this room, everyone knows I'm there.
Yeah, it was like that. I was in a big kind of airstrip thing, and one guy seen me, and I killed him in I'm talking the speed of the sun's rays hitting the earth. When he spotted me, I put a bullet between him, and some dude came running from 2 miles across the airstrip, going "Hey you!" I know exactly where you are in the exact pinpoint accuracy to where you're hiding, even though you killed this guy pretty much silently. With a bow and arrow, not even a silenced weapon, a bow and arrow. There wasn't even a bullet, and they still all knew to descend on that exact location where that guy had died.
There's one thing I need to know, Shane. Okay.
Yes.
One thing I desperately need to know, and it's a 2-parter question. Part A. Okay. Have you killed Gus Fring yet?
Gus Fring,
the guy from Breaking Bad, who's the bad guy in this.
No, I'm still he's still the big bad guy. Sorry, no, I haven't. I'm guessing he'll be the last guy I kill because he is the big bad. He's he's El Presidente of this fictional island you're on.
He is indeed. And then the second part B, if you will, is have you received an email with Gus belittling you about the fact you haven't killed him yet?
No, because I'm pretty sure the email that's tied to my Ubisoft thing is my email that I use for signing up to junk.
Okay.
I have one of those junk emails.
You're smart. You're smart, and you're not like me filtering through 4,000 junk things every week. Yeah.
I will say this. Some of the big tentpole missions have been really fun.
Okay.
Really, really. There is some really fun, dumb action movie style missions in this game that are awesome crack. Mm-hmm. Really enjoying them. And I am enjoying the story is what it is with FarCry. The usual, some crazy person has taken over something. You are the only man on the planet who can sort out the entire world's problems with a gun. We've every game, but it's fun. It's dumb popcorn movie fun, and it's this time of year when work is busy and it's wintry, dark evenings and stuff. It's fun to just run around and shoot stuff and hunt animals and jump out of an airplane, fly a helicopter into a guy's face or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just it's entertaining, and that's exactly what I'm in the market for at this moment in my life.
And you will probably be playing it in the year of our Lord 2025. So we will keep checking in on you until you eventually clear every one of those towers. But yeah, Far Cry 6, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the only other game I wanted to discuss here, and I think we can probably clip on into what's coming up in the week or two, is Forza. They both start with FOR, or something like FOR. Forza Horizon 5, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Shane, this is me playing
your... Slower.
Oh, sorry. Shane, I'm playing your game, Shane. I'm playing that dirty game that you can't get a hold of, that you would love.
I know, right? It looks so amazing. I'm so jelly.
As we know, Shane's at least top 5 probably series of games is Need for Speed. You love a good Need for Speed once or twice a year.
Love a good Need for Speed. Good racing game, especially Need for Speed because they're so arcadey.
Yes. And this is by far the crown jewel of arcade open world racing. And I'm here to tell you, Shane, it's very like the last two, but that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it looks so good. I'm literally looking at videos on YouTube going, I'm so jealous.
It's beautiful.
I'm so tempted to spend 500 quid on a Series X.
It's worth it. It genuinely, if you told me, I was listening to Mignon on Herds for Nerds yesterday, or maybe it was in the green room afterwards, and he had said, I'm waiting for Dead Space to come out before I'll get a PS5. That's the game that'll make me buy one. And I just went, that makes sense. Cool. That's what he loves. And he'll wait until the thing he loves comes out. Shane, there's literally not a video game on the market that was more made for you than this damn game. If this doesn't make you get this console, what will?
True. It's like if Forza is that only thing that is making me like antsy for an Xbox, you know. I just can't justify the £500 right now. Like I can't. I wish I could. I really wish I could.
If, like you work for the gaming retailer whose name we shan't speak, and if I were you, I'd be pulling every string in the book. I'd be like, hey, you know that second-hand Xbox Series X you got up there on that loan? Hey, let's do a talk. Let's do a deal. I'll send you up some slightly used 360 games. I know you love to sell them, you know.
Do you really think anyone is trading in Series X?
I was going to say.
I don't know. You tell me.
I feel like trading in my PS5 is absolutely nothing on it to play.
Mine is gathering dust as well. I use my Series X a lot, and like Game Pass is such a wonderful investment because like when we finish this show, I'm going down to play a Game Pass game. Forza was Game Pass also.
Yeah.
So like yesterday I just had Forza. I was like, oh, brilliant. And today I have Grand Theft Auto San Andreas Remastered just there. It's just ready to play. It's already downloaded. I'm going to go down and do this. No money was involved apart from my subscription. You know, like that console, even though none of them really needed to come out last year at all, like that one at the very least gives me constant stuff to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The Game Pass is phenomenally
unbelievable.
Amazing. No, I don't have it at the moment because I changed to PlayStation because the exclusive sold me last year. I got a PS Pro second hand and I played a load of exclusive games and I fell in love with them. And then I went, I'm going to stick with the PlayStation. So I went and got the PlayStation and there's just nothing. There's nothing. I was like, this isn't next gen. These are all, I could play these on my Pro. And they don't look, it's not like with Spider-Man, oh, now I can see my reflection in glass. I'm not going to play through the game again because of it.
No,
you know?
No, 100%. Well, I did. I'm the use case where I actually did, and I will say it looks damn good on that PS5. But you're right, like you shouldn't. Like that's not what would sell you sell you on the console.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm thinking to myself, geez, with my Xbox, I would have had more fun with it because of Game Pass. All my Xbox games are already on because that's what I've had for years with Xbox.
Yeah.
Play all them again. I was like, why did I bother? I'm hoping. Yeah. I'm waiting for Arkham Knights. I'm a big Batman Arkham Asylum, and I know it's a different universe, but it's still the gameplay is similar. I know I love it. Like but I'm hoping for that.
Speaking of upcoming games, we'll be moving to our next segment. Segment. That's the word, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
I like segment.
I do like segments also. Play that thing!
Are you interested?
Now, boys, I need to ask you, are you interested in anything that came out over the last week and the upcoming week? But let's start with what has just come out because we have just been talking about a couple of them. First of all is Forza, and we all just teased Shane about his interest in that, and Petso, you look kind of interested too, so we kind of know where we are there. Next one I want to talk to you about that just released on the day of recording. It'll be out a couple of days by the time you hear this. I know nothing about the reception of it just yet, and I can't wait to get down and play it, is the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy Remaster. Any interest, guys?
No, it's getting destroyed at the moment on Twitter.
Is it?
It's the...
Oh, no.
Apparently it's missing like over something like 40 to 80 tracks that were in the original. The graphics and stuff is like they've improved the lighting and they've altered, like, so now Tommy Vercetti's chin isn't square. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a €60 worth of a remake or a remaster. So I think they've overpriced the work that they've done.
Would you have paid €20 for San Andreas or Vice City or whatever? Because like
I would have paid €20 for it, but I won't play number 3 again. I know I won't go back that far. San Andreas is brilliant, but I think Vice City was my favorite.
Yeah,
so
me too.
I would love to pick up Vice City and play it, but even watching gameplay of it, it doesn't look any different except for the lighting, and I'm like, it just doesn't. I don't understand where they were going with it. Apparently it's missing some things and stuff in it as well, and
oh no,
I don't know, it's just not getting a great reception right now. I think it was a bit of a money grab, definitely, maybe even if it was €40 for 3 games, I think it might have done a little bit better. But I think the full price for 3 old games that they obviously put a lot of work into it, but there's so much missing. I'd nearly be happier with the originals.
And I think, like, to clarify as well, like, I think that is very disappointing. The music track piece is what I'm referring to now. Like, the fact that they're missing those tracks is, of course, disappointing. There was a precedent for it, though. Like, it's not unexpected in the sense because those tracks have been missing for years. Like, if you bought Grand Theft Auto Vice City or San Andreas on one of the newer releases, not if you went into your local game store and bought a PS2 copy, of course it's still there. But if you went on the PS4 and you downloaded like last generation's version of it, you didn't have Billie Jean, you didn't have whatever, because those rights ran up, and you know they weren't going to rebuy them for that. However, what I will say, just to step on my own point, is like Grand Theft Auto 5 is, after like becoming one of the biggest money juggernauts on the planet, like the fact that game is in the top 5 sellers like for year after year after year is one thing, but like the amount of whales in those games that is just generating money for every one of those sales is mental. So like the amount of money they made, could they really not get out there? And maybe there's some tracks they couldn't get back. I know Michael Jackson went to his grave regretting allowing the tracks to go on to a violent video game, so there was probably some stipulation where they could never get those back, but replace them with another person's tracks, you know.
And that's apparently, you know, there's a band called Love Fist in Vice City.
That's right.
Apparently one of their songs is missing.
That's weird, because that's a Rockstar created band.
Yeah, I think Danny Dyer was one of their voices.
Was he?
Voices. Yeah. So like the cast in Vice City is by far the strongest cast in any of the episodes.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I was looking at it just before we were talking. I was like, Jesus, I didn't realize half these people are even in this. Like your man Busesi, sorry, I can't remember his first name. Just hundreds of them, and I'm just like, whoa, this is incredible. Like, and the third one also had a really good cast.
San Andreas had a really strong cast, like Samuel Jackson from the Out, like, and you got to learn more. Willie Nelson and everything. Like, Willie Nelson was good. You had Axl Rose was a goddamn radio presenter.
Yeah, but when you look at if you were to compare Vice City and San Andreas, you would know more people in Vice City.
Maybe, yeah.
Like Vice City, just straight away, you're like, oh, he's from this film, he's from that film. Oh, he's still making movies.
It was very film centric, Vice City, wasn't it? Like, it really played a lot of film tropes. But like it or lump it, Grand Theft Auto Trilogy Remaster is out there, and I'll have thoughts on that next week, folks. So do tune in to hear that, and maybe everybody else will too. Who knows? But
it's actually on my dashboard before you move on, ready to play.
Oh, is it?
All 3 of them.
Is it now? What one are you going to start on?
Much like Pesto, I think Petso. Sorry, Vice City is my
Pesto's for pasta. Pasta.
Yeah, you see, no.
I've been called worse.
You've ruined it now. I think Vice City is probably up there as my favorite, so I'm probably going to jump to Vice City. I game share with a friend, and he was really interested in buying it, so I was like, I'll float you 30 quid to, like, you know what I mean? It only cost me 30 quid for the 3 games, and like looking at them, it looks like they have changed. It's like they look a bit more cartoony or something now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Since which I'm okay with if it runs.
I think that was the
natural
way to go. If they're not going to rebuild the models completely, I think that they have to lean into the fact that they don't look like real humans. Do you know, like make them cartoony? I think was the only choice. You know.
It was meant to be. Vice City was a parody of so many gangster films and stuff from the 80s and 90s that I think the style suited it as a parody of those things. So I'm glad. I was glad they didn't make that one into, like, I know, don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have seen it in like GTA 5 graphics. It would have looked amazing. But I think I liked how it looked. I kind of wish San Andreas looked a little bit more, because that was a bit more kind of grounded.
Yeah.
Story wise and stuff like that, I thought it was more out on its own. It wasn't really parodying anything, even though there was a little tropes back.
There was like Boys in the Hood references and stuff at the beginning, but as you kind of expanded out, it got less and less about that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was about his story, CJ's story, and stuff like that, and I like that kind of stuff.
But look,
aspect of it.
Boys and girls, we're going to have hot takes when it comes to next week, so do stay tuned for that. And just 2 or 3 minutes or less, I want to check in on how our temperatures are for next week, which is the highlights, I believe, is first of all Pokemon's Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Anybody here have any interest?
Don't want to Switch.
no. Well, I do and I don't care. Anyway, moving on. Battlefield 2042. Petso, I know you're looking out for this one.
It's my first PlayStation 5 game that I pre-ordered, and it better be good.
Nice.
I'm a big fan of Battlefield. I love it's one of those games where you can go like, oh, last night I was playing it and this happened.
Yeah.
When you're playing Call of Duty, you don't get those kind of moments.
You don't. Every match feels the same.
And I love that aspect of it. Now, wasn't a big fan of Battlefield 1.
Me neither.
I think 3 or 4 was probably my last kind of ones where I was hyped for it. So, and this one looks good. Looks like they've gone back to kind of like the style of 4.
It does.
So
yeah.
I'm hoping.
I'm excited too. I'm going to wait and see if it's good, if the community thinks it's good. So I want you to tell me what you think of it when you play it, and then 100%. If you have positive notes, I'll jump right in there with you, boy.
Yeah, 100%. I'm hoping. I'm upset that there's only 4 maps or something on release. There's no campaign mode. There's a few different multiplayer, so it's not like really trying to sell itself. You know?
Yeah, but like I think, all right, we won't bog ourselves down here too long, but like I think if a game like Battlefield never really had great campaigns, I think Battlefield 1 that was the best thing about it, I thought, because they had those vignettes where they just focused on like very specific little things, and that worked well. But like whenever they did a big story, it was always dumb. It was like a really bad story. And then if they can take all the people that work on that and all the time and the resources it takes and apply that to the multiplayer where I spend my time, cool.
I think the story mode in those types of games could just be a tutorial. Here's how you shoot, here's how you drive, here's how
flying
you fly.
a damn helicopter. Like they need to tutorialize that stuff. But look, we digress. And as we tend to do. But what about, let's take a very quick break where we're going to stand up and you're going to hear some ads or whatever the hell it is, but stick around because we are going to get to the meat and potatoes of this podcast after 40 odd minutes, where we're going to finally talk about the topic of the show, where we're going to dive into the big ass question that has come up over the past 3 or so years, which is, are video games addictive and should they be classed as an addiction? So if you want to hear about that, and if you want to get involved in this conversation, you stick around until after that break, you hear? Now, let's take that break, play that thing! And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you got sold some wonderful, wonderful items in our ads. But with that, I think it's about time we get into the main event. And that is the topic of the week, which we're probably going to have to do a stinger for. But I'm not going to hold you as I normally do to that, Shane and Aaron. Don't you worry. But we probably need to discuss this. But our question of the week, or our topic of the week, more accurately, is: are video games addictive? Okay, the reason I thought that this might be a good one for us to start off on is because I didn't want to throw us a softball. I didn't want to say like, what's your favorite game? Or like, why are FPSs the same? Whatever it is, I wanted to kind of put something topical out there because I want to talk about these things with people, and this is the platform to do it, So in the last couple of years, 3 years to be perfectly accurate, video games have come up in the news a lot in terms of their addictiveness. Now, the reason being, and 100% if my eyes are looking away, I'm looking at an article that like lists out all the dates because I'm a human being, folks. But in 2018, the World Health Organization added gaming disorder to their list of international classifications of diseases. Okay? Which officially means that in the eyes of the World Health Organization, video games are an actual real addiction in terms of their, requirements for such. However, key counterpoint to this is that the American, which is kind of the body for these things, to be honest, the American Psychiatry Association's manual did not. Now, this is where there's many schools of thought, both at home and in the labs and offices of those who study this type of thing. There's many schools of thought on whether this is true or not. What are the causes? What are the, measurements by which you can kind of judge whether somebody is in fact addicted to video games, or whether they're just like me or you or anybody that's possibly listening to this that just really enjoy playing video games. So I want to open up this discussion now, and I'm going to maybe, because this is a new topic, kind of way we're going about things, guys. I don't know whether I should just say, Shane, what do you think? Petso, what do you think? Instead, what I'm going to do is, on this particular episode, I'm going to ask the open room, what do we think as a group here, guys? Like, what is your personal feeling if I say to you, are video games an addictive pastime?
Yes.
Okay, so we got the general tone of the
Good night,
room.
folks.
Yeah,
got
that's
the general
it. Topic over. Good. Roll credits. We're out the gap.
Now, I am also in the realm there. Gun to my head, I would say yes also. But I do think there is an incredible amount of nuance to discuss about it. And there's a credible amount of factors you can associate to it. So, I'm going to go to you individually just to kind of see what your thoughts are. So, Shane, do you want to start us off? Like, if I was to say to you, are video games addictive? You're going to say yes. But, do you have any follow-up to that? Or is it just straight up like, no, of course they are. That's just how
No. Like you said, it is a nuanced topic. There is many different reasons. There's many different reasons why many people get addicted to different things. Mm-hmm. For me, a lot of addiction can boil down to the hit your brain chemistry gets when you do something enjoyable. Like,
yes,
drugs or alcohol or caffeine or smoking, or all these things spike the chemicals in your brain, usually dopamine or serotonin or something to that effect.
Yep.
And I would be a downright dirty liar if I didn't say that video games don't spike those chemicals as well.
100%, of course.
You know?
Yeah.
I agree with you. Sorry,
yeah.
you finished now.
No, that's my final point was that when you spike those chemicals, your body gets this rush of like, oh, that's amazing. This is so good. This is lovely. This is wonderful.
Sure.
Video games are doing this to me. Why wouldn't I want more of this? All it takes is for me to sit here and press some buttons and I get these wonderful chemical explosions in my brain. Why wouldn't I want more of this? Now, there is another thing that after we go around the room a bit more, we might get back to, is the design of certain games to attack those things. But that's a different.
I get you.
Not a different topic of discussion. It folds into this, but I'd rather go around and get more opinions before we dive right into...
We'll come back around to that, for sure.
Exactly.
Sure. Now, Petso, you had a point there, but I just want to say, and just to set the scene here, like, we don't necessarily have to, like, all of us get up on our podium one by one and make our statements. Do feel free to get involved. Do feel free to jump into the conversation to all three of us here. But, like, we're obviously not going to try and talk over each other or anything like that. We're not assholes. But, like, obviously, let's treat this like we're in a pub here and we're just trying to hammer it out. Like, we need to solve these issues, ladies and gentlemen. So, like, you're going to talk into it. You're going to have counterpoints. Yeah. So, like, don't be afraid to do that. But, Petso, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so I agree with everything Shane's saying. I think that it's a little bit more, though, as well. So, like, addiction is nearly like muscle memory. Like, so say, for example, you have to have your phone in your hand. It's not in your hand, you're like, where's my phone? You're like, that's an addiction to your phone. You know what I mean? You're looking for that thing that makes you comfortable, that makes you happy, you need it. It's like that addiction.
Habitual addiction, I think that's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think gaming is like that, where like you're at work and you're like, oh, I have to get home. It's not I want to get home and play a game, it's I have to get home and play a game. And I think that is the addiction. Yes, you're 100% right, Shane, when you were saying like all the more your brain opening up and saying I'm happy with this. But I think people can play games and have a drink and feel those things and not go, I need a drink or I need the game as well.
100%.
So
for sure.
I think it does come down to a lot of muscle memory, and I think it's real. I think it's nearly used as a way to deal with anxiety and depression, and I think it's like a safe space for people, and I think that's what they get addicted to as well. It's like I can sit on my own and I can explore this world that doesn't exist, but I love exploring it and learning about it and finding out more about it, and that takes you away from the real world and your real
I
problems.
think there is an element of that, all right. And like I want to stress here as well. We are talking about I did pick a pretty controversial topic because it does touch on a lot of human psyche things, and our opinions are not really opinions. These are more our thoughts for a lot of this stuff, because you know, we all have addictions of some sort, and we all have, like, you know, mental quirks of some sort that we can kind of touch base on, but we don't mean to make any sweeping statements on anyone. Everybody is their own person, and of course we can't judge your own individual things, but we are just going to speak about what we assume things are. But like, it's interesting you bring up the ability to use video games for anxiety or to kind of create a safe space, because, you know, I can speak like on that 100%. Like, I'm very on my sleeve about my own social anxieties. Actually, podcasting and streaming and stuff has really helped me in a lot of ways, because it's really opened me up as a person. Shane will tell you, like, when we first started this, I was super nervous on the microphone, and I was adamant against, you guys can stream if you want, I'm not going to do it. And I'm the only one that went ahead and started doing it, weirdly. But it's funny, like, you know, these types of things do help. But I 100% do, and I do know a lot of people that use video games as a means of escape, where, like, I am having one of those days where I'm just shaking with anxiety and I can't explain why. I know my process. I know that, like, when that happens, I know what I need to do, and my partner knows that I need to do it when it happens, which is, I just need to go up to the room, I just need to put on a video game, and I take a lot of steps personally to try and make sure I'm not ignoring the issue. I'm working through it, but I'm doing it in a safe space of, like, Skyrim, or, like, I'm thinking about why I'm like this when I'm playing it. But it is used negatively or positively for that for a lot of people, and I think that could play into a lot of people's addiction, because if you rely on going to San Andreas or to wherever to deal with your anxiety, and if you suffer from anxiety a lot, and if you're not necessarily seeking professional help around that, then it becomes almost like a crutch, I would imagine, because I've seen it happen to me, to a lot of other people, you know. And that's a form of addiction there too, is escapism.
Yeah. 100%. I think like when we talked about this in depression, we came out with a positive like kind of outlook at it, and we were thinking, like, you know, it's a good crutch. It's probably a very healthy crutch to have if you're dealing with depression,
in comparison,
considering to the alternatives of, you know. And like, gaming as a whole is good for so many things, you know, like your hand eye coordination and all the other things that you could list, the big list of things gaming is good for. So it's not like you're sitting there and your brain is melting, or, you know, I mean, you're wasting something. It still helps you. It's still a very positive thing, but at the same time, it has like one thing I've written down here is social withdrawal. I think it definitely does. It takes you away from social situations.
100%.
And I think that's one negative I would say about it, which doesn't help. Like, if you're depressed or suffering from anxiety, it's going to make that 10 times worse in the long run, because as like Phil, you said, like, doing the podcast made you sort of step out of your box a little bit. Like, imagine if you hadn't done the podcast and you still wouldn't have got that confidence you have now, and that would have been a little bit, you know. I don't know, like, for me, like, another thing I'll say as well is, like, when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of positivity around my household, right? And when I got my first game, which was Sonic, at the end of the level it says kind of like, well done, you know. And I got addicted to that, because to the praise. I was getting positivity as a kid and as a teenager from these games, where I wasn't getting it in real life. So for me, it was a strong crutch for depression and stuff like that, especially in my late 20s, when, like, I remember my nan passed away, and I was very close to my nan, and when I actually went home and played a game, couldn't tell you what game it was. I probably wasn't really playing it, but it was just to take my mind away from the situation. It was only for an hour or two, and then back out to sort out, you know, the funeral and all the rest of it. But, like, it was a crutch that I needed at that time as well. I do feel there's worse crutches.
There is for sure. I remember in my
definitely.
late 20s having a similar issue where family member had died and a lot of other horrible things that kind of happened in a very short time period, and it changed me as a human, and it's actually what brought me to Cork. But I remember during that time period, I can't look at gameplay of Mafia 2 without thinking about that time, because I just played the crap out of that game. Like you said, probably not even paying attention to it, but
Yeah,
just
you're running through everything else in your head, but you're playing, but your hands are doing something, and it's taking your mind off stuff. It's
and I didn't have the same mental faculties I have today that I could deal with stuff. Like, I was very shook at that time, and I just remember like using video games as 100% escapism. I do not want to think right now, so I'm going to play this crappy thing or whatever. Well, Mafia 2 is actually quite a good game, but but like, I get it. Shane, have you, like, in terms of addiction, like, and I know we have to tread lightly here, but like, I know your background as a teenager, you know mine as a teenager. We grew up together. Like, we smoked cigarettes and drank and did other things, and in similar parts, and we understand for like what chemical and consumable addiction can kind of feel like. Not like heroin levels, but like, cigarettes are probably like the hardest thing I've ever tried to give up in my life. I still fall off that wagon every time I have like a considerable amount of drink in me. But like, we get, when you think addiction, and for me that's what I think of immediately. But to bring in video games into that conversation, it's one of those things where, like, when somebody says, oh, coffee is addictive, it's like, yeah, of course it is. It's something that you crave. Do you feel like video games, outside of dealing with depression and outside of like these situational addictive circumstances, do you feel like video games have that addictive quality where, like, you wake up in the morning and you can't get on with your day without a cup of coffee or a cigarette or whatever your poison is? Do you feel like video games have that aspect of addiction?
I think for some people, yes. When you bring up that particular point, I think that comes down more to the person than video games.
Sure.
Do you get me? Because like, I'm like you said about, some people just can't get through the day without a cup of coffee. I like to drink a cup of coffee on the days that I work, but I consciously do not drink it on my days off because I'm just pottering about the house and stuff. I don't need that kick in the arse to get up and going for work and stuff, because I'm lazing around, I'm playing some video games, I'm doing the laundry, I'm doing whatever, and I go like, no, I don't need the caffeine today. Yeah. Caffeine is a tool to me. It is a wake-up tool. And don't get me wrong, coffee tastes delicious. It's a wonderful drink. But like, I think video games. Thank you
to our sponsor, Nescafe.
I think it comes down to the person when it's with video games as well. Like I think that also comes back to that point of certain games, yes, are designed to hit those receptors better. Like the whole
it's a good time to touch on that, actually. Yeah,
the whole online gambling industry is like designed to ping all those lights in your head and make you go more. Yes. And some games
sorry, go ahead.
Some games draw from that for inspiration and go, how can we keep people ingrained in this system of keep playing our game, keep spending your 10 or 15 quid every couple of weeks on our game.
Yep.
Like your loot box is popping open with dazzling lights and wonderful sounds, and then you open so many loot boxes that you start associating that little ping sound that the loot boxes make with something good. This is a good feeling because I'm going to get a thing from my 5 quid or whatever. The likes of, I suppose, look, it was inevitable that the name Fortnite was going to come up at some stage in this conversation. And that is one of them. And as someone who works in the retailer who shall not be named, a lot of parents talk to me about Fortnite.
Yeah, of course they do.
And they're like,
what the hell is this Fortnite?
Or they're in buying like Fortnite credit off me, and they're like, God, I wish he's at home playing Fortnite right now and he's screaming at the TV in frustration and stuff. And I'm like, you are the parent in this situation. Like, pull him out of the bedroom or throw the PlayStation out the window, whatever you need to do. But like, if you're in here buying the kid credit for like V-Bucks for the game to buy more stuff, and they're at home currently while you're purchasing this, screaming at the TV in frustration because they can't win a Fortnite match or whatever, that is a problem. That is a major problem.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think, like, let's not get on the, I'm old now, so now I'm on my soapbox, and things were different in my day thing. But like, I think there is an element of like, Petso, you mentioned there when you were a kid, you were playing Sonic the Hedgehog, and the complexity of Sonic the Hedgehog is go from left to right and get to the end, and like that was it. Like you could maybe explore the level, or you could do whatever, but like there wasn't an awful lot to be wrung out of not Spider-Man, Sonic 2 at the end of the day. But with Fortnite and games of service as a whole, they are super predatory. And there is good examples out there. Don't get me wrong. It's not like painting them all with one brush. But for the most part, it is a tactic, especially when it's adopted by big corporations, to wring as much money out of one product as humanly possible. And they're going to put in all those hooks to capture kids, to get their parents' credit cards on file, and do all these things. And I have to wonder, because we're talking about addiction, like, is that going to have a major side effect on the youth gamers of today? Because the main games they're playing are Fortnite and whatever. They're screaming at each other in their rooms at a very early age, like 4 or 5 even. And they are feeling bullying because they don't have the latest Fortnite skin that the other guys have. And like, there's an awful lot of like insidious horribleness about the model as a whole, that you think that maybe this is going to foster even more addiction, because they're almost like they're playing gambling games in their rooms every night. Like,
they're creating situations for kids nowadays where like you're competing all the time, where like games from the 80s and 90s, and I know I'm showing my age, but there was no competition in them. It was like if I got to a certain level, I was telling my friends how they could get to another level. But with Fortnite and these types of games, there's more competition, and that's you can be addicted to that separately to be addicted to actually playing the game, where you have to get the wins, so you're screaming and shouting at the telly. We've seen all the rage quit things like on YouTube with FIFA and everything as well. So like that's an addiction in itself, and obviously you've got like some sort of rage issues or something that you need to deal with separately. But that's, and like the parents buying the credit, like to buy like a skin, like it's just bad. Everything's just bad form now.
And that's to make sure, like that's the same argument I hear like my friends who have kids that say, you know, like their 3-year-old is walking around with their own mobile phone. And I'm not judging, by the way. I have no kids. I can't, of course, judge. I'm not. It's just funny. It's an observational thing where like their kids walking around with like their own phone or their own iPad or whatever. And I'm like, wow, your kid is like 3. You bought it a phone. Does that thing, can that thing make calls? Like, oh yeah. It's like, what the hell are you doing buying a 3 or 4-year-old a phone? It's like, all of their friends have one. If they don't have one, they get bullied, you know? And it's just like, I get the argument, but like, and that's what's happening with Fortnite, is that like, you know, the new packs come out and then every parent has to go into GameStop or other retailers in order to buy the credit to get their kid things so that they don't get ridiculed in school. And if, God forbid, you put the foot down and say, no, your kid will get ridiculed in school. And it's like, it's creating a horrible cycle, and that will create addiction. That's like, I have to keep on top of this. I have to keep on top of this. Because like my social status is in question now.
It was the same, like if we were bringing back, I suppose, I'm guessing now you guys either collected Pogs, Boglins,
Pokemon cards,
and obviously the Premier League cards and stuff like that as well. They were our Fortnite. You know, that was we had to buy them, and
100%.
Like, they're €7 in the shop. I'm not buying them. It was the same thing. So like, it's more modern, but at the end of the day, it is Pogs, and it is that stuff that we used to throw around the playground.
That's incredible. Actually, you mentioned that, and you were 100% right. This has been around since the 70s probably, but like I remember in the 90s bugging my mother and father every time they went to a newsagent's to buy me the Premier League stickers for my Premier League sticker book, which to anybody who's not Irish or English is essentially a soccer sticker book where you pick up packets of random stickers of players from various teams to put into a book. And I remember begging my parents, like, no, please, you have to get them. And they turned around to me and go, you don't even like soccer. I was like, I know, but I need, to this day, I don't like soccer, but I had to have that book.
Yeah, I was the same. I didn't watch soccer or any interest, and I had to have these stickers. And you'd be out the back of school, and like, you know, you'd be swapping them, but your jacket would be like that. It'd be like you were trying to sell some like A-class drugs or something.
Like, have you got a Wayne Rooney? But yeah, no, it's for real. Now let's get back onto the topic of addiction in order to kind of, you know, get it, because I have a couple of questions I want to ask you guys as well that I kind of, you know, pulled from different sources. And the first of which is, what do you think it is about video games that makes certain people not be able to stop? And when I say certain people, I mean like the kind of use cases and test cases that would spur something like the World Health Organization to make this an addiction. Like, you know, your worst case scenario gamers who are playing like World of Warcraft for like 4 days straight and, you know, nearly dying from dehydration, or like, you know, like these extreme cases. What do you think it is about a video game in particular that would make somebody, you know, just do that for so long, or just to not be able to stop?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's kind of a mix between everything we sort of mentioned previously, and then like it could be one of two things. It could be one where it's not an addiction; it's just somebody really just likes that game, and you know, for the 40 to 100 hours they're going to play it, that's it then, you know. Or it could be the fact that they're like, oh, I can't. What if somebody, like you said, World of Warcraft? What if my friends level up higher than I am? I need to go in and get more levels than they do, so that they, like, you know, and it's that social thing again. Where I have to have the best weapons and stuff. It's just a different type of game.
That's actually very true. I'd say in World of Warcraft and stuff like that, because I think a lot of argument for people when remember you brought up earlier social exclusion, where you were saying that like video games can stop you from actually having real impactful human contact with people, and it can. Like a lot of counter argument will be, well, I made better friends online than I would have ever made, you know, in my town, and I
when
get
you meet
that.
them. You meet them face to face, you don't know how to talk to them because you
that's the
microphone
problem.
And headset on.
I was going to bring that up earlier.
But like, there's an element of like, I can be my best self here, whereas I don't like myself here, you know, in the real world. So yeah, sorry, Shane, go ahead.
No, I was going to bring it up earlier, but you were talking about the social anxiety and how people can use games to escape that. And in one sense, they can be social on games, but also, like Petso just said, they can use that to further escape their social anxiety because they're hidden behind a headset and an avatar and a, you know, I am an orc with super cool armor and an axe. This is
with 700 hours put in to make this helmet flame up or whatever it is.
And I look cool and sound cool that way, but in real life I'm just a guy or a young lad or a young girl or whatever, and I feel socially awkward and I don't feel good talking to people. But if I'm hidden behind an avatar, I'm, you know, I come out of my shell.
It opens up doors conversationally and socially, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Which is another thing you can hide behind, because you can get addicted to, I am my best self when I am using my online avatar.
Yeah. That's very true. Now, the last question I wanted to kind of ask around our video games addictive before we kind of give our last kind of wrap up on the topic is, should video games be thought of in the same realm in terms of their addictiveness as substances or as other, let's say, participation addictions such as gambling? You know, like, do we feel that video games fall into the same bracket, or are they like a less, let's say, serious one? Or like, where do we feel video games sit in the pantheon of addiction, like ranging from like gambling to heroin? Do you know what I mean?
I get you. I think video games, number one, nowadays definitely can fall into the gambling addiction category with the likes of your FIFA packs and your Fortnite skins and your, like,
it's dopamine, as you mentioned earlier. It's just dopamine hits, like, even without loot boxes.
I've seen customers that come into my store, I won't name anybody or anything, but like they come into my store like once, twice a week and think nothing of dropping 60, 70 quid on FIFA coins or whatever to go home, and then they're right back in the very next week, and it's constant. Like, they might only buy FIFA, the one game they buy every year is FIFA, but by the time the next FIFA comes around, they've spent like 3,000-4,000 euro on that game.
And they think nothing of it, which is weird.
Yeah,
but I don't blame gaming. This is, I'm trying to think of a way to explain what I mean here. I don't blame gaming for what Shane's saying, because they're not playing the game in the sense that it's not like it's not like Batman Arkham Asylum, and it's not like, oh, I have to play it, I'm addicted to it, I'm going to play it over and over and over again and forget everybody, I'm not going to talk to everyone. It's you're literally buying a pack and opening the pack in a gambling sense, which is like such a small part of what's in the game, but it's not, I wouldn't class that as gaming.
Yes.
Because it is gambling.
It's the corporation twisting the game to their needs.
Yeah, so like in the new basketball one that came out last year, they have slot machines. That's where you get your players. Like, that's gambling. Like there's not.
100%.
I wouldn't say that's gaming. That is gambling. It's 100% gambling. And the same with the cards from FIFA and stuff like that. Like, it's hard to say that gaming is an addiction, because the things that are in games are addictions. Gambling is an addiction, and it's in our games right now.
Well, I think they are. That is layering an addiction on top of an addiction at that point. That's like gaming in itself, in its rawest form. Like your Sonic 2 is still addictive because you're getting that dopamine hit when it tells you well done, or you know, hey, I'm doing really well, or whatever it is that you get that like lights those neurons in your brain. But when big corporations like EA or Take-Two come along and they say, okay, how can we squeeze as much money out of the population with this one thing? Let's bring in, you know, gambling techniques to now sneak in gambling addiction on top of their gaming addiction, and now you've got this like addiction squared situation going on.
Yes, definitely. It is. It's like, look, that's one side of it. I think like anything can be addictive. You know what I mean? Like I can get addicted to, I don't know,
hot tubs.
Hot tubs. I can get addicted to hot tubs in the morning, and then that becomes.
Oh, you know it.
And then that becomes something that I need to seek assistance for. Do you know what I mean? If anything, like you can get addicted to. I can get addicted to drumstick lollipops. I could get addicted to cans of Monster, to caffeine, to cigarettes. I
did get addicted to cans of Monster. I had to wean myself off. Actually,
that's it. Like you get addicted. The reason I started drinking coffee in college was to stop me drinking energy drinks, because I was starting to drink so much of them when I went back to college as a mature student. I didn't have the energy to sit through all these lectures and stuff in the first year. My body was not used to, or my brain was not used to all this concentration that I needed.
I think in that cocktail, the energy drink probably wasn't the problem. It's probably the vodka, Shane. But no, I get you. Like anything that gives you the good feels can obviously get to that point. Now, one thing I do want to say, and especially to anybody at home, and you know, tell me to shut up if I need to, but like, don't listen to this and think and question yourself too harshly and go like, Jesus, I do play like, you know, 2 hours a night of a video game, and when I add that up, that's 14 hours a week when I could be doing X, Y, and Z. Like, my status has always been, if you enjoy what you're doing and you're not harming anyone, you're not wasting your life. You're not doing, like, I tell myself that all the time when I'm playing games. I'm just like, this is what I like to do. Like, I'm enjoying myself, you know, like, so therefore my life is well spent. But like, this is an opportunity for all of us, and I'm going to go around to all of us before we leave this off, and at home I invite you to do the same thing. Check in on yourself, and like, just objectively, like, don't allow any of your bias to cloud your judgment, but just ask yourself, do I have any kind of an addiction? And if I was to ask myself this, you know, I'm giving myself as many graces as I need to, of course, but like, I think, yes, there's an element of addiction there when it comes to me with video games. And it's like, I often find I'll put on a game and I'm like, I'm really excited about coming home and playing games like your Petso you said earlier. And then within an hour, I'm like, I just want to watch YouTube now. You know, I got the fix of what I wasn't even really wanting to do anything when I actually sat down to do it. So maybe there's an element there, but I do feel like I do still have the ability to say, no, I've played too much this week, I should really get up and go for a pint with the guys, or I should go get a coffee, or I should have a podcast, or, you know, like, stepping away from it to not make it my entire life. That's what I consider my bar, my personal bar. And we all have our personal bars, but like, if I was to go around the room, like, Shane, do you feel like objectively you could say that you have any kind of addiction when it comes to video games?
A little bit, yeah. I'd be similar to yourself in that I do check in. It is once I do enjoy it, and once I'm not harming myself or others, I find I'm quite happy. But there is those times where, like, you know, I have been sitting down to play games and I'm like, I have a mountain of stuff to do, and that thing we all say to ourselves, just one more match or just one more level. If I just do this next mission, then I'll stop and I'll go do the things.
That's procrastinating.
That's partly procrastinating as well. But sometimes I find it's the video game that's doing. It's not me even. Sometimes I'll procrastinate doing other things. But when I'm playing a video game, I find it so much easier to stay doing that than to step away and do the thing that I need to do, whatever that may be. Walk my dog, do my dishes, you know, laundry, whatever it is I need to do. Work on a podcast, edit, you know what I mean? Like, it's just terribly easy to stay ingrained in the video game. It's a lot easier to step away from, like, watching TV or something, you know?
Yeah, I think that's like having an addictive personality to a degree as well, though, because like, I'm the very same when it comes to like drinking pints in the pub, where I'm just like, you know, I say to myself, I'm going to have 2 games. and then I say to myself, I'm going to have 2 pints. I always end up with 14 of each, you know? So, like, you know, it's you get caught up in the moment, and you're just like, and then you step away after a while, and you go, oh, I can recognize that I shouldn't have played as many as I did, you know. That's the key point. But Petso, what about you, mate? Do you think that you could like objectively look at your like life habits and say, do I or do I not have any kind of, even on a low level or a high level, an addiction to games?
For me, I don't think it's addiction. I think I use it as a crutch where, like, this is my space. Like, where, you know what I mean? I love this room. Is like, we only like bought our first home this year, and we're very, very lucky to have it. And this is the first time I've ever had my own room where this is my area, my safe spot. And I could be playing Total War Warhammer on one screen, and I could be watching YouTube on the other one, and I'm just chilling out. And I'll chill out for an hour or two, and then I go downstairs, have a cup of tea, watch a bit of telly with the missus, and like that's my like working day evening, you know. So I never feel like I need, like, this space is giving me, like, I don't need it, but I know it's there, and I'm happy that it's there. But for me, it's always been a bit of a crutch. I've had a shitty day, or you're not feeling the greatest. It's nice to be able to sit down and drift off into these worlds. And
I'd almost argue in your use case there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like I would almost argue that like it's less of a crutch from listening to you, and it's more like take a step back from crutch, and it's more of a tool. It's almost like it's how you release, you know, your tension from the day or whatever.
It's because, like, look, we're all human, and day-to-day stuff can be very frustrating, and sometimes, you know, you ever have that conversation with somebody, and then afterwards you go, oh, I should have said this, should have said that, should have said this. And
all the time.
I just feel like gaming gets that out of my head, and I'm not dwelling on stuff. I can pass things quicker, because I've so kind of zoned out for an hour, you know, that way. So
100%.
For me, I don't like. For me, it's closer to like something to do with anxiety and depression than it would be addictive. But as you guys made brilliant points where, like, there is some people, like, companies are putting addictive things in our games, and that's what's ruining gaming. Like, and that's why gaming's getting a bad name at the moment for a lot of stuff, you know.
100%. It's like, if you could make a comparison, and it's probably a very loose comparison, but it's like in America more so than in Europe, where like everything is laced with sugar, and you get a sugar addiction when you're eating your cereal, and you don't realize you're addicted to sugar. You think you're addicted to the cereal. No, you're not addicted to the video game. You're addicted to the gambling. You know, in a lot of cases, you know,
exactly.
Right. And but that's not to say you're not addicted to the game. That's just like there is an element of like you can split this down into multiple addictions.
I thought of a good example for you of Fortnite addiction. My friend's daughter is mad into Fortnite. She's about 9 or 10 years old, and she's mad into it, always playing it. And he told me at one time she was playing a game, and when he came in, she had been so into this game that she wouldn't go to the toilet, so she sat there and wet herself while she was playing, because she was so addicted to that game. She couldn't put it down for 2 seconds to go to the toilet. Now, I know the game is live and you can't pause it, but look, if you have to go that bad, you know what I mean. And he told me that, and I was like, Jesus, that's crazy that these kids are that into it, you know what I mean? Like a game that can be restarted in 2 seconds, you know?
Like, that makes my heart bleed, obviously, like, you know, the poor child, but like, I I'd have no kids, so take my word with a pinch of salt, but like, it's kind of like, that's, I would imagine, the point where you see that as a parent and you go, okay, there's a problem, you know, okay, I probably need to interact here in some way, you know, because like, that's a crazy story.
Yeah, I remember David told me that last year, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that's crazy that there's something. But even when we go to the events, the kids are so mad into Fortnite and like Rocket League and stuff like that. Like, it's insane to see them, how happy they get when we put it up on stage, and you know, they know all the dances and they know all the thing. It's a whole different ballgame to what we grew up with.
Yeah, it's marketed within an inch of its life, and they are doing a supremely good job at it.
Like, someone definitely
scarily good job at it. But like,
it is.
But that's where we are. I think we can pretty much, and correct me if I'm wrong, say like as a cohesive whole here that I think we kind of got to the point of video games are an addictive substance, like you know, and like everything else in the world that can be considered addictive, there is going to be levels, and depending on who you are, depending on your social situation, depending on your mental and the physical situations, you know, you may have your mileage will vary in terms of the addiction, but it is undeniable that there is elements there, even on the most base level of video games, dopamine hits, whatever it is. Yes, I think it probably should be at least talked about when the conversation of addiction comes up.
Yeah, and just as we're wrapping up, I would say as well, if you know somebody who is constantly on a computer game and you think, Jesus, they're addicted to that, or you think that they're not being sociable or something, you feel like you're worried about them,
Sure.
pick up the second controller, and you'll be surprised how talkative they can be.
That's actually a great point.
Come
That's
down to their level instead of judging them about being on the game all the time.
That is a great point. That is a very good point.
It's a good way.
I had that coming up as well. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
but like, it's such a good point because like I used to shut myself out a lot with video games because I grew up in the country in the middle of nowhere, and I had no friends nearby, and I had video games, and that's kind of part of the reason I'm so into them. But like, I got so used to that when I did move into cities, I kind of had two modes. It was either, you know, sit in my room and be alone and play video games, or be out in the pub and be super sociable, but I'm plastered drunk. And that was the only way I could do social situations, was being plastered drunk. And I had a horrible, speaking of addiction, I had a horrible alcohol addiction for many years. And now I've kind of tapered it back to like, you know, if I didn't drink for a month, I wouldn't care. But there was a time where I couldn't go a day without drink.
Yeah.
And I you know, I'm not saying it was, obviously people out there have had much worse addictions than I did, but like I can recognize that, where it's like when I got to that point of other people, like I started living with people, and then they joined me in the sitting room when I was playing a game or whatever, and then all of a sudden I became their friends, or friends of their friends are now my friends, and all of a sudden I was more social. And it's 100% like if just because somebody is playing a video game and that's how they want to spend their night, that doesn't necessarily mean that what they're doing is wrong and what you're doing is wrong. Yes, one can be as bad as the other, but maybe, as you said, come down to their level and try interacting with them where they're most comfortable.
Yeah, 100%. I think yes. So like if you're ever worried about anybody, about any situation, always sit down and chat with them. And to talk to a gamer is to pick up player 2. That is the key, is to pick up that extra controller. And even if you're not interested in what they're playing, join in any way, shape, or form as you can. And I think you'll relate. One thing with my own daughter is we used to bond over Lego. She wouldn't tell me about school or talk to me or anything like that. And when we played with Lego, she'd tell me her whole day. So I just kind of find like that's the way you find, if somebody is this is their thing, then that's when you talk to them, is when they're playing that. It's
bonding.
Playing that or doing that,
yeah,
it's bonding. Yeah, for sure. It is a good one. So let's leave it at that. So I think that was a fantastic discussion, and thank you both for joining me on that conversation, because I'm really happy we did this now in terms of bringing the topics around, because that was super enjoyable. I do want to preface everything though with, we are 3 chuckleheads sitting in our respective spare rooms talking about this from a very white male perspective. Like, you know, we're not going to cover every opinion in the world, and we can't, and we're not educated to do so, but I think that this was a very constructive conversation, and I think we all got a little something out of it. But if you at home have any feedback on anything we were talking about, personal experiences, if you disagreed with what we said, you know, obviously do be nice, but do let us know in the comments down below. Let us know in our socials over on the Casual Game Community on Facebook, and pop into our Discord, it'll be down below. We want to hear from you, and we want you guys to be part of these conversations as we go forward. So one thing I will start doing, if we do start getting comments about each topic, the next week I will bring those comments up, and we will do a small segment where we give you guys the voice of, well, we talked about this last week, what did the community say? So if you want to be a part of the show, that's how you do it. Just get into those comments, and we will do our best to bring those to the surface, if you aren't being an absolute word Nazi about it. Okay? But that is that. Now, before we leave, we want to do one last thing, and we're going to do it very quickly because I know we're running on time and people only have so much of that these days, is we're going to get the community involved, as we always do, with the weekly question of the week. So play that thing!
Question of the week.
Question of the week. With that, our question of the week comes from, I'm going to butcher this because it's another Irish name, Padder MacMathuna, where Padder MacMathuna over on the Casual Game Community over on Facebook, where you too can get in on the question asking action, much like our Discord and much like the comments down below. He has asked, with the announcement of Insomniac's Wolverine, which came out a couple of weeks ago, but we don't know much more about it since, so I still think this is relevant. Do you think it's in safe hands? What are your hopes for it? Now, let's keep this kind of tight, but I thought it was an interesting one because we all, like, you talked about Spider-Man earlier, Petso. You know, like I talked about it too, and Shane, I know you loved it. What do we think? Like, when we saw that, like, Wolverine sitting at a bar and Insomniac's name came across, what were our feelings?
Like, if it's anything like The Last of Us, Insomniac is Last of Us, isn't it?
No, Insomniac is Spider-Man and
Spider-Man. Okay.
And not Injustice. What's it called, Shane? The
Infamous.
PS4 game. Infamous. Thank you.
Infamous. Yeah.
Like, yeah. Sorry, Spider-Man. Yeah, you said that.
And Ratchet and Clank.
Okay, maybe they won't do a good job.
You don't like Ratchet and Clank? What?
No, I think they'll do a good job with it. I personally, I'm a big DC Comics fan, and I don't find Wolverine that interesting. Even though, like, the movies did make, like, well, the last movie made him interesting. I just find sometimes it depends on who he's going to go up against. Yeah. You know, if like, are we going to see Magneto, and are we going to see, like, is it going to be like Suicide Squad where you get this random selection of X-Men that he's going to go up against? How gory is it going to be? Because the R-rated Wolverine is way more interesting. I
think that's the biggest question on everybody's mind. Is like Insomniac Spider-Man. Although, having replayed it, there is some cutscenes there where some people do get offed. And in a gruesome sense, like, not to spoil anything, but it's pretty well known. Like, Miles Morales' dad, that whole thing is pretty heart-wrenching. But in general, like, Spider-Man, when you kick a guy off a roof, he sticks to the side of the wall. Like, there's no killing. You know what I mean? It's not like Batman, where it's like he clearly killed that man. You know,
he just cripples them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Spider-Man is super friendly, where it's just like, you know, yes, I kicked him in the face, but I just webbed him to a wall. You know. Yeah. Whereas Wolverine is like the next level. That's like his whole thing is dismemberment and disemboweling. You know, and. Like, I know Hugh Jackman did a lot of work in terms of, like, you know, showing us on the silver screen how we can do that without necessarily killing anyone. But I think, like, if you were to do this game, like, could you play that for 20 hours and not kill someone? And be happy with it?
I don't think I'd be happy with just hearing the shing off people's, like, regular clothes.
Yeah. You know, or what if it's like all robots? You only ever fight robots. Like, would we be satisfied with that? Because that always rubs me the wrong way.
I have a feeling because from that little teaser they'll probably do something with his brother. Is it Saberwolf?
Sabretooth.
They'll probably do something with him.
Are they brothers or are they just like blood brothers?
Oh, they're like adopted brothers or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. But I have a feeling they'll go somewhere with that line. It just from them being in the little cabin again. That just reminds me of that. But it really comes down.
It seems like it's set in like the 70s or the 60s or something, doesn't it? Like,
because he doesn't age and all the rest of it. Like, I don't know, it depends on who. They need to kind of announce the villain, and that'll get me interested because it'll be like, do I want to go up against him? Like with Batman, it's the Joker. It's like, oh, I can't wait to see Mark Hamill play the Joker again. You know, like, and that makes gets you excited. But I don't know who Wolverine's going to go up against, and if it's all robots, it's going to be off.
Now, I think we talked about a couple of points there, but like, and Shane, I'll get to you now, but like, my only take on this is that I played through Spider-Man twice, recently on the PS5, and after I played Spider-Man, I went straight into Miles Morales, and that honestly was it was a noticeable improvement on the first game. Shorter, yes, but it was a better moment-to-moment game, and I was super impressed by that. I was like, wow, because like, I literally played the one before, like an hour before I booted up the other one, and I just couldn't get over it. I was like, wow, this team has really found their stride here in terms of the superhero open world. Like, many people have tried doing Spider-Man games and have failed with the feeling of it, and it just didn't get there and whatever. They nailed it, and then they improved on it. So like, I think in terms of, and I loved Ratchet and Clank, the last one that came out, like, you know, full disclosure, and I always loved Infamous. So like, I think that team in particular has kind of bought a lot of trust from me, where I can kind of go, I trust these guys to put in the effort to at least make it well observed. You know, like, it's not going to be a cash grab. It's not going to be, they just don't get Wolverine. Like, I think at the very least it will be well observed, and that will probably be enough for me to get it, you know.
I just don't think the open world will work as Wolverine. Like, how will you travel around quickly? You know what I mean? Like, is it going to be vehicles? It just doesn't seem to work with that particular character.
It'll be interesting to see where they go for sure. Like, you know, do you just suddenly learn how to climb walls? It's like, oh, I've had these claws all my life, but like, oh look, I can climb a wall now. You know?
It would be great if they
but
started
Shane,
off...
what do you think, dude? Like I know you love Spider-Man, but like,
yeah, well, like my first question or my first thought would be, we don't know if this is open world. We're just assuming because of Spider-Man. Like, I mean, Rift Apart and Ratchet and Clank games are fairly linear. Like, you can jump from planet to planet, but when you're on that planet, they're fairly linear to a degree, with a few open areas where you
sandboxy.
Sandboxy. Because similar, I'm expecting something similar to the most recent Tomb Raider trilogy. You know, it was kind of like very linear corridors into little sandboxy areas, back into linear corridors again. That's what I would expect from Wolverine game, and I think
that would be a strong move.
Yeah, and I do believe, much like yourself, Phil, that Insomniac have the chops to do a great game. The only thing I would be worried about is not the standard of the game. Is it a game that will appeal to me when it comes out? Is there going to be too many suits involved? Or like, it has to be 12s, it has to feature this, it has to do this because it's Wolverine and it's a big
possibility.
Name, you know?
Like, it is a possibility, and like, you know, it is straight up. Oh wait, who owns So
it's Disney.
Yeah, the X-Men were Fox, and they got bought by Disney, so it is Disney. And the last one was Sony/Disney. But like, yeah, like it could always happen when Disney's involved. It could always happen. But I think like you would hope that after the last Spider-Man games, that, you know, Insomniac has shown, like, just let us run with this. Like, you know, we know what we're doing. We would hope that the money would be clever enough to see that. But yeah, 100%. I do think the linear approach would be great. I think like, you know, let's look at recent example here. Like, Marvel's Avengers, terrible game. And then the same publishing house puts out Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a linear experience, and people are falling over themselves saying it's way better than I ever expected it to be. And like, that format could be the video game equivalent of the snackable Marvel movie every year. You know what I mean? Like, that could be, we get another Marvel experience every year that's like a linear based video game, and you play through it and you eat your popcorn and you're happy, you know?
If it went from, like, it started off as him as a kid and he just got his powers, and it's you learning how the buttons work, and then later on he gets his adamantium, so he's a little bit stronger. But like, he's just not one of those superheroes that you can upgrade. You know, like Spider-Man has all his gadgets and stuff, so you can all constantly have. That's upgrades. Very
true. Yeah.
So I'm just thinking it's a tough character to approach. So I will be interested.
Here's the thing, right? I think, and I get where your head's at, because my head was there too, and I was like, how does he just all of a sudden learn all of these abilities? You know, like, I've been Wolverine for 30 years at this point, but in this last week I've learned 16 abilities. You know, like, it makes no sense. But what I'm thinking about it is, if they're doing a timeline piece, that would be a very good way, as you said, to do it. Maybe he's a child and he's learning about his healing factor and he's learning about his speed. And then the beauty of this, right, is that I've always said that the X-Men are I'm not a comic book guy, but like, the X-Men are the most wasted franchise in comic books, because they have the best roster of individual people who can all do their own things and have their own stories, and they touch on social issues, and it's so underutilized. And in doing so, they all train each other and stuff. They all, like, you know, like X-Man or Dr. X's, whatever, Professor X's academy, like, it's all about training them. And even when they're not there, they're being trained by other mutants, and they're all trying to survive, so they're helping each other survive. I imagine that there will be many scenarios, kind of like that Web of Shadows game from Spider-Man, where you're going to meet other heroes, and they're going to, like, impact knowledge upon you, and you're going to train with them, and maybe that's how, over time, he kind of learns how to be himself or whatever. And also maybe going to war. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see, do you know the way, like, Logan he served in the army or whatever? I'd love to see, like, you know, some Medal of Honor type stuff with Logan. That'd be class.
Yeah. Isn't now, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that bar scene as well, is that when Stryker is getting him to join the team in, like, the 70s? He
possibly
meets something in the bar. Like, the bar scene, I think, is important to the story. I think that's why they showed it, because it was in the movies, I think twice in the movies, once in a little clip where he tells them to F off, and then the other one was actually in his own movie.
Yeah, I think that's like a formative scene in the comics. I couldn't guarantee that because I'm not a big comic book guy, but like, yeah, I think you're right. They do reuse that for a reason.
Yeah, so, there was a big bar scene in X-Men X-Men Origins Wolverine, the really terrible film. But there was a thing in that where, like, you know, he hulks out and kills half the patrons of the bar, and he's like, you know, all this kind of stuff happens. And then you're right, there is X-Men First Class where the two guys approach him, Professor X and Magneto approach him about joining the team, and he's like, sling your hook.
Yeah. That is good stuff.
Yeah. It's hard to know. I feel like they'll probably come from the point, which it's probably going to happen a lot with Wolverine. They're probably going to come from the whole Weapon X program striker thing, where it's going to be like, the bulk of it is probably going to be you fighting like striker soldiers and stuff like this, and Weapon X mutants. A bit like the X-Men Origins Wolverine game on the PS3, I believe, which wasn't actually a bad game.
That was a decent game, yeah.
It was decent, but it was like, you know,
repetitive.
And you buy a new like power up, and it's like, okay, all of a sudden he can do like a whirlwind attack where he puts out the claws and spins around, or it's like buying fighting moves.
When it's an arcade game, though, you don't really care. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like it's a different thing. But look, guys, I think we probably said enough. I think like let's just be cautiously optimistic. Let's wrap it up that way. But I think that the chops are there, but there's a lot of factors that could mess it up. So. Patter, I don't know if that answer is going to satiate you or not, but it is an answer all the same. Now, guys, with that, we have been talking here long enough, and thank you so much, first of all, to Petso of All Cast Irish Gamers for sticking with us for this hour and a half plus. Petso, where can people find you and all of your compadres or whatever, if they want to?
Cool. So you can check out us at All Cast Irish Gamers on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We stream. We had a big mad party stream there last weekend, which was great.
I saw that.
And then obviously we have the Geeks for Weeks and the Hertz Nerds podcast. And then Minion at the moment is finishing Dead Space on like the most hardest mode available.
Nightmare or something
like that at the moment on Twitch.
Something.
And then YouTube is just, at the moment, we're using it for just putting any streams or any highlights of streams down on that as well.
Yep, so you can be found pretty much anywhere you'd expect to find these things.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, fair play. And it is great stuff, guys. I would highly recommend joining in and having a look. And I assume when the event circuit starts happening again, we can probably expect to see you guys back in your suits and back out there in the crowds.
Fingers crossed. Just want to get the camera out and go film, and that's what that's what I'm looking forward to.
I was saying it to Shane in the green room before you joined us. I bought a gimbal today, and like, I'm just like, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to meet the people and I'm going to share my love of geeky crap with everyone. But yeah, I can't wait to join you on that. And we must like, you know, get the band together here at some point. If there is an event coming up, we must get on that. But Petso, as always, it is a pleasure, and I hope we have you back again soon.
Anytime.
And Shane, where can people find you?
People can find me sitting in this chair talking to you every Thursday on your podcatcher of choice on YouTube.
Every Monday.
Well, we record on a Thursday. Sorry, I sit here every Thursday. In my world, it's Thursday. In listener world, it's Monday. You can find me in this chair every Monday. And I'm just gonna like really badly dub over Monday over Thursday when I said it a minute ago. Just like really poorly.
It's like the Monty Burns thing where, like, you know, it's just you put the coffee mug over your mouth, go, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, exactly. On YouTube, on podcatchers of choice, we are the Casual Gamecast. On all our socials, we are Casual Game Co. That's your Twitters and your Instagrams and your whatnots. We are Casual Game Community on Facebook, which you can jump into and chat with people, post things about video games, post memes, have a laugh, post news articles, have a chat with people. There's a great bunch of people in there who love to talk about video games. So go join them, go have a chit chat. You can find, we're not really doing a lot of Twitch at the moment, but we are there. It does exist.
Excuse you, I was just about to say, okay, I have spent the last week doing up and reinstating the Twitch channel because we moved away to give YouTube a try. It wasn't really fantastic. I think you kind of need to have been bought by YouTube for like 50 million to actually make that work. So instead, we're going to go back to Twitch, and I'm personally going back in a kind of I wanted to like just mess around and do my own thing. So you can find me, and if Shane or anybody wants to join me, they're more than welcome, of course, at twitch.tv. Sorry, is it Twitch? It is, yeah. Twitch.tv /Philiopius. That's twitch.tv /PHILIOPIOUS. Run, don't walk, folks. But yeah, by the time you hear this, we should have some streams up. I'll be on this weekend, so by the time this hits on Monday, go over there, follow the channel if you want to know when we go live, and watch a VOD or two to see if it's for you. But Shane, thank you so much for listing out the socials, so I don't have to. It's great.
Let's wrap this up. I have a gaming addiction to get back to.
Yeah.
I'm shaking, man. I'm shaking. I need my fix. But with that being said, thank you guys. I have been Phil, and I have of course been joined by the lovely Shane and the wonderful Petso. Take care, be safe, but most of all, stay casual. Good night.
Goodbye. God bless.
Bye.